Back on CBS Sports HQ Spotlight, Josh Allen, the odds-on favorite to win his first MVP award heading into the final week of the regular season. He is expected to start but not play much for Buffalo, just going to keep his consecutive games streak alive. Lamar Jackson, really the only one we think that is in the race with him, but we're including Joe Burrow and Saquon Barkley because they've had some amazing seasons as well. Douzable is here, and producer James wanted to make a case for all four of those guys to win MVP, but you said basically up in the newsroom you can't do that for Joe Burrow. Why is that?
I can't, and I love Joe Shiesty.
You do love him.
When you look at what the Bengals have done this year, Chris, they're 1-7 versus winning teams. Right, you can't be the most valuable player if you're 1-7 versus winning teams. And matter of fact, that first win came last week versus the Denver Broncos, in that game that they almost gave away. And people will say, well, the defense is historically bad. I go back to the Commanders game when they played Jaden Daniels as a rookie quarterback, and Jaden Daniels has, and Amanda, scored on every single drive. And when you're talking about being the MVP, the most valuable player, it's your job as a quarterback to elevate your team and figure it out. I mean, how many times have we seen Josh Allen, and myself included, thought the Bills were going to be in a rebuild, him elevate the team and put the team on his back and win games? We saw it versus the Detroit Lions. He couldn't afford to punt the football away because Detroit scored every time he scored. So if you're Joe Burrow and you want to be in that rare air of top 2 or 3 quarterbacks, you have to figure it out. And there's been so many games where he hasn't been able to get them over the hump. I just read you the stat. 1-7 versus teams with winning records. You cannot be in the MVP conversation when you're 1-7 versus winning teams in the NFL.
Out of the 4 guys we showed, the guy with the longest odds out of them is Saquon Barkley.
Which is criminal.
Okay, so thank you. I am loving this year for Saquon, as is everyone. Congratulations to the Eagles for getting him. Look, when it comes to, first of all, he could have broken the all-time rushing record. They're not going to play him. I'm upset about that. Some people are fine with it, but whatever, I'm selfish.
It's about the Super Bowl, man.
Most carries in the league, 345. Yep. Most yards, 2005. 13 touchdowns, tied for 6th in the league. I mean, can you make a case for him over some of those other guys?
Everything you just said was the case that needs to be made, right? When you look at it, in 16 games, he rushed for over 2,000 yards. There were games where he essentially put the team on his back. You go back to that Ravens game in the 4th quarter. He was the guy that put the game away. Go back to that Rams game in the 2nd half. He put the game away. Go back to the Commanders game earlier this year. He put the game away in the 2nd half. There have been games when Jalen Hurts in the passing game has not been there. Saquon has been the constant. So when you talk about the value and what the most valuable means on your team, Saquon has been that for the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, people will say this Eagles team went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, but Saquon has elevated this team to having everybody think they could really win the Super Bowl. And to your point, Amanda, that's exactly why he's not playing this game, right? Because they don't want to risk him potentially getting hurt. You talked about him having the most carries in the NFL. They need to give him some rest so he can go on that run throughout the playoffs because they're going to have to lean on him. We don't know the status of Jalen Hurts right now. We don't know if he's going to be healthy enough to come back in the playoffs. They're going to need Saquon Barkley. So Saquon Barkley should have better odds than Joe Burrow when it comes to the MVP, and it's criminal that he doesn't.
And they are going to have to play a wild card weekend, Amanda.
Yep.
What did you say?
I said I'd like honorable mention. I want to give him like an honorable mention.
He'll probably win Offensive Player of the Year.
Trophy?
Yeah.
He'll probably win Offensive Player of the Year for sure.
These millennials, unbelievable. Let's get to Lamar Jackson, who has a legitimate shot to win this thing. And he's a guy, unlike Josh Allen, who's probably going to have an opportunity this week to put up a lot more stats because the Ravens can clinch the division on Saturday if they win. So he's going to play.
I mean, when you look at it, it's crazy to think, right? Because Lamar already has 2 MVP awards. And people are saying this is his best season yet. But yet everybody's saying that the MVP race is over, which baffles me. I don't understand it. When you look at Lamar, and man, let me just give you some stats. If Lamar passes for 5 more passing yards and has a passing touchdown, it will be the first season in NFL history where a guy has thrown for over 4,000 plus yards passing, rushed for over 800 yards, and thrown for over 40 touchdowns. Let me repeat that again. This will be the first time in NFL history if Lamar Jackson on Saturday passes over 5 yards and throws a passing touchdown where a guy passes for over 4,000 yards, rushes for over 800 yards, and then also throws 40 or more touchdown passes. He's also on pace to not only lead the league in yards per attempt, but yards per rush as well. And then when you look at it, this is the stat that I think is the most telling. When you talk about a guy that is most valuable to his team and can elevate his team, versus playoff caliber teams, Lamar Jackson is 7-3 this year. No other quarterback can say that in the league. So when you talk about a team that's been battle tested and Lamar's had to elevate them, that's exactly what he's done.
We were just talking to Ashley Nicole Moss about this when it comes to the NBA, and it's very similar because we were talking about Nikola Jokic, and she said, look, he's having one of the best years of his career. Is it voter fatigue?
I think 100%, right? Just because he's won it twice before, people are going to say, well, maybe we give it to Josh Allen this year because Lamar has won it, but it shouldn't be that, right? I liken it to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan probably could have won the MVP every single year, but there were times where people had voter fatigue. Like you talked about it, this is one of those years. If we go back and say again, Lamar Jackson has 2 MVP awards, and this is his best season yet, why shouldn't he be the MVP? The number stated, the record stated, and then when you talk about playing playoff caliber teams, he's been at his best.
So what is the case to go with Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson?
The way he's elevated this team, I'll go ahead and throw my hand up. I thought they were going to be in a rebuild. And there were games where Josh essentially has put this team on his back, and they've won games. Now, the difference for me when it comes to Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, I talked about those playoff caliber teams. Josh Allen is 2-3 this year versus playoff caliber teams. Teams that would go into the playoffs if the season started today. Josh Allen is 2-3. Lamar is 7-3. But again, when you look at this roster for the Buffalo Bills, nobody had them competing for the number 2 seed in the AFC. And Josh Allen has essentially put this team on his back. Right, he's taking care of the football. I believe only 6 interceptions, where last year he had 22 turnovers. So I love what he's done, and you see it right there. The most seasons with 40-plus total touchdowns. 5 years in a row he's been able to do that. He's trying to chase down Aaron Rodgers to have it for 6 years. So when you talk about what Josh Allen has done to elevate this team, right, and the value in that, then for sure he's definitely in that MVP race because nobody saw, including myself, them being the number 2 seed in the AFC.
I can hear Pete Prisco screaming at his screen, saying, I picked him to win the AFC.
Yeah, he was probably the only person that picked them to win that. And I don't even know if he picked them to win the AFC. He said that they would win the division. I don't know if he said they would win the AFC.
I think he has Bills and Packers in the Super Bowl.
Really?
I think, yeah.
Kudos to you, Pete.
But if you had a vote, you would say Lamar Jackson.
I would give it to Lamar Jackson.
All right. Good try, James, trying to get him to make a case for everybody. Not going to happen with Joe Burrow for Lige, not this season with an 8-8 record. Pushing the pile, latest episode with Lige, previewing every game from Week 18, the final week of the season on Saturday and Sunday.